Wasn't been here, I think this is your third time, I think, and we sure appreciate you supporting our programs. Rose is a New Orleans native who moved to the Atlanta area in 1988 with a freshly minted computer science degree, but her true passion has always been nature and wildlife. Rose's wildlife and education experience includes animal rehabilitation, performing in Zoo Atlanta's free-flighted bird show, and leading many bird walks, garden club, master garden programs, school field trips, she did one of those this morning, canoe trips, and scout programs. Rose is an outreach speaker and bird walk leader with Georgia Audubon Society. She has a Master Birder certificate as of 2012, a field trip leader, a naturalist with the Dunwoody Nature Center, a canoe guide with the Chattahoochee Nature Center, a certified Boy Scout marriage badge counselor, a Georgia badge.
Merit. I now pronounce you Boy Scout.
And she actually did a program on bats here, I think a couple of years ago. Georgia Bat Working Group Liaison Public Speaker on that topic, and a Georgia State Certified Mushroom Forager.
All right, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be back here again, and what a great crowd. I know that's a big list of things. And I had a friend on Facebook ask, is there anything you don't do, Rose? And I'm like, make a lot of money. That's the one thing I don't do that. And I have a brand new clicker that my husband got me for Christmas. This is what Christmas is like in my house. Thanks, hon. But I've been doing this for years without a clicker, so watch me. I'm gonna run over there and hit the button. Yes, thank you so much for having me. My gateway drug into all this was bird watching, so hummingbirds are near and dear to my heart. This is a great topic. It's a much easier sell than the bats and the snakes and the other programs that I do. They're just wonderful, beautiful, sparkling little brats, right? So we're gonna talk kind of the big picture with hummingbirds, and then y'all know I like to keep these programs real local centric. We're going to talk about the local hummingbirds we will find here in Coweta County, and then we'll touch on a little bit for gardening for hummingbirds. But this is what we're going to have right now in Georgia in Coweta County will be ruby-throated hummingbirds. I do get people come up to me and say, "Oh no, I got 4 or 5 different kinds in my backyard." No, you don't. But thanks for playing. No, and we'll kind of get into that. We'll kind of get into why people think they have a lot of different kinds of hummingbirds in their yard when actually all we have are the ruby-throated hummingbirds this time of year. We'll get into that. Alrighty, so there we go. Okay, so here's Rose being cute with PowerPoint. I promise this will be the only slide that's silly. So hummers are extreme animals. Birds are pretty extreme animals, but even in the bird world, hummingbirds are very extreme animals. Remember your high school yearbook, and it was like the superlatives and the most likely to succeed and the most athletic and all that. Okay, in the animal yearbook, it's going to be like hummingbird, 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 hummingbird. They're very extreme in a lot of ways. They're very different from all of our other birds on planet Earth in a lot of ways. So, okay, I gotta point that way. All right, so there's my little prizes, right? Okay, so the smallest bird on planet Earth is a hummingbird. This is the bee hummingbird. That is a real #2 pencil, okay, right? So show me 2 fingers, show me an inch. Okay, now take it out to 1.25 inches. That is wingtip to wingtip on that bird. 1.25 inches. That is a teeny, teeny, tiny bird. Smallest bird on planet Earth. Okay, hummingbirds have the fastest visual processing of any warm-blooded animal. Okay, dragonflies can process faster than a hummingbird can, but of all the mammals And birds, on planet Earth, hummingbirds have the fastest visual processing. If you had a hummingbird in here, it would not be lit, because we have fluorescent lights, and those look like strobes to a hummingbird. It'd be light, dark, light, dark, light, dark in here. If you took a hummingbird to a movie, they wouldn't see a movie, they would see picture, 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 because their visual processing is so much faster than ours is. Okay, I gotta point it that way. All right, they have the highest metabolism of any warm-blooded animal on planet Earth. We'll drill down on that. And they also are the only bird on planet Earth with where one of them has a beak that is actually longer than the bird itself. We'll get into why that evolved, but I love this photo, right? Look at these two guys, they're like, whoa, dude, right? Wow. How do you sleep with that, right? I love that photo. All right, so, and let's just take a minute and enjoy these are just beautiful pictures that I pulled off the web, you guys. None of these are North American hummingbirds, but they're just such beautiful animals. The iridescence, the colors. Look at that blue, purple, navy with the white, and there's so many different colors in hummingbirds that don't show up in any other bird species. And then the iridescence is just a little bit of flare on top of that. Look at that. I know. Yeah, we'll get into, there's a magnificent hummingbird listed as a Georgia hummingbird, but actually there's only been one report in the state of Georgia. But you know all the crazy bird watchers were driving to the coast to go, I think it was in Winder, drove down to go get that magnificent. Also, I'm a word person, and I love the fact that hummingbirds have really great names, right? Crowned wood nymph, right? A glittering throated emerald, Esmeralda wood star. I mean, those are such great names. You know, I just got a poster in the mail from Cornell that said 50 different hummingbirds are named after a jewel. You know, emeralds and rubies and sapphires and tourmalines. You know, this is a tourmaline sun angel, right? We got flame-rumped sapphires. I want to be reincarnated as a flame-rumped sapphire. That sounds really fantastic, right? Great names. All right, so here's our big picture, like we promised. We're starting with the big picture. And I do not put any Latin in my presentations because I fear Latin. This is why I'll never be a good gardener. But I had to put it in this one because I think it's kind of funny. So they are in the order Apodiforms. With chimney swifts are also in the order Apodiforms. So if we know our Latin and we go to a podiatrist, we all know what pod means, right? Foot, right? So what's apod? No feet, right? So their Latin order says that they don't have any feet, which is, I think that's hilarious, because obviously they do have feet, right? They do have feet, but hummingbird feet are almost useless. He can sit on that twig, but he cannot hop, he can't walk, he can't step up. All they can do is shuffle with those little feet, and they can scratch an itch, and that's about it. So Georgia Audubon, which is now Birds Georgia, because somebody had the bright idea, maybe we should have the word bird in the name of the organization. So we just changed in November, but Georgia Audubon, we used to have ambassador hummingbirds that were injured and rehabilitated, but neither one of them could fly ever again. And so we used them as ambassador birds, and when Hummingbird Mom went on vacation, guess who had the hummingbird sit, right? That'd be me. It was terrifying. And they sat on a twig on the floor of their cage. And their little feeder is right here. And if they fell off their little twig, they couldn't step back up onto that twig that's sitting on the floor of the cage, and they would starve to death. It was like having a baby in the house, right? I couldn't be away from that hummingbird for more than 3 hours because their metabolism is so high, and they fell off that little perch, and I wasn't there to like, oops, scoot them back up onto the twig. They could starve to death. I know, it was terrifying. So if I had to be gone for more than 3 hours, I had to pack them in the car and take them with me. And that's what Hummingbird Mom did. She packed them into the car and drove them to the office every day with her. It was like having babies in the house again. So anyway, that's why I had that one little bit of Latin up there for you guys. They are Western Hemisphere only. They are only in the Americas. There are no hummingbirds in Africa. There are no hummingbirds in Australia, Europe, China. They are only in the Americas. Lucky us, right? 18 species can be found in North America, but really these are tropical birds, except for the ruby throats that come way up here, but these are really the tropical birds, and most of those 18 are like, okay, you go to the southwest corner of Arizona and a couple of them leak over the border from Mexico. 18 is a stretch. They run 2 to 8 inches. They are mostly solitary. Us in Georgia, we can attest that they don't get along with each other, right? Anybody with a hummingbird feeder? Y'all can all say, yeah, they do not get along. Fly at 34, dive at 50. Longevity, 3 to 12 years. An animal with that metabolism living 12 years is pretty amazing, actually. Most birds are quite long-lived. Getting it. All right, physiology. This is our hummingbird skeleton. And what I want y'all to notice about these pictures is this big flat bone on the front of that hummingbird. In a bird, you call that the keel. In a human being, you call that the sternum, okay? Same bone. And that's where our pecs attach, right? So you can imagine a hummingbird has some really big pecs, right? They have very, very big flight muscles. I think, yeah, 25 to 35% of the body weight is their flight muscles. So that's his sternum, if you want. And it runs like us. It starts up at his collarbone, and then it goes down to his shin. So that's like your sternum running all the way down to about halfway down your shin. So that's the biggest keel bone in the animal world, in the bird world. And they are the only ball and socket joint in the bird world. We humans have ball and socket joints, right? So we can do this, right? Birds cannot do that, except for hummingbirds. And that is why hummingbirds are the only bird that can fly backwards, right? Because they can do figure eights with their wings and generate backwards momentum, or truly, truly hover. You know, some birds can hover in a headwind, like an osprey, but the only bird in the world that can truly hover or even fly backwards is a hummingbird, because it has a totally different shoulder joint than any other bird. All right, they also have a very, very long tongue, obviously for fishing nectar out of flowers. In fact, it is so long that they can't fit it into their mouths. So when the tongue is not sticking out, it actually wraps around the back of their skull. And our local woodpeckers are the same way. Their tongues also wrap around the backs of their skull because they need to reach the bugs way down under your tree bark. They don't use their tongues like, you know, if you look at cartoons, hummingbirds sip through their beaks like a straw. They don't do that. They do actually lap like a cat. La 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 la. The tongue shoots out. All right, hummingbirds are pollinators. Yeah, if y'all remember from the bat talk, our local bats are not pollinators. They are all insect eaters. They eat pollinators. But hummingbirds are important pollinators, and we even have here in Georgia plants that have evolved to be pollinated only by hummingbirds. So there's plants in Georgia that we won't have if we lose hummingbirds. But you can see the different shaped flowers, the different shaped beaks, and how these things evolved together. So once again, here's our sword-billed hummingbird with the beak longer than the bird. And he has evolved to pollinate this really, really, really long trumpet-shaped plant. I have the name of it somewhere. It's Latin. I fear Latin. But it's, y'all can come up and get the name of it. But it's a tropical flower. So why do we have these really extreme things going on with hummingbirds? Well, how does this work, right? This hummingbird can reach the nectar in this flower and nobody else can. A bee can't get to it, a butterfly can't get to it, other kinds of hummingbirds can't get to it, a bat can't get to it. No bats have tongues that long. So only this kind of hummingbird can reach the nectar in that kind of plant. Nobody else is taking it. Plants don't make very much nectar. So this hummingbird is like, yay, the whole thing for me, I'm not sharing. And when he does that, he's rubbing, right, all the pollen on his face. And then he's going to go to the next flower, and that's how we pollinate, right? So once he's going to go to the same kind of flower because he's not sharing this kind of flower with anybody else. The bees and the butterflies and the bats are all hitting the other flowers. Big bonus if he can find the same kind of flower. Does that benefit the flower? Yes, it does. My pollen, my precious pollen, is not going to roses and daffodils and dandelions. It's going to my kind of flower. So it's good for both the bird and the flower. Anytime you have this mutual benefit, add a million years and you get these extremes where the flower's really long and the hummingbird's really long, because that's a win-win in nature. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay. All right. Okay, we said we're going to talk about metabolism. Once again, they have the highest metabolism of any warm-blooded animal. And whenever we do this thing, where, they talk about an animal's metabolism and we scale it up. If you had this kind of metabolism and you weighed what you weighed, they always do it in cheeseburgers or whatever, but we're in Georgia, so I do this in Chick-fil-A sandwiches, right? Right, so yeah, 3 to 7.5 calories a day. Scale that up, they weigh 3 grams, we weigh a little more than 3 grams. That'd be 155,000 calories a day that you would have to ingest, or you would just get too skinny, right? If you didn't do 150, and that is 352 Chick-fil-A sandwiches. When I did this in New Orleans, I had to do it in muffalettas sandwiches, which is a lot fewer muffalettas, right? Yeah, you only have to eat 200 muffaletta sandwiches a day to keep your skinny figure, right? Yeah, their heart rate is so fast you can't hear beating at all, it's just a hum, and their breathing rate is 250 a minute. Lots of numbers, sorry. So we're talking about this enormous metabolism. And when do our hummers first arrive in Coweta County? Anybody know? April 15th, that's a good, yeah, around there. It's actually like the last bit of March. The males will be coming here because they got to get some good territory, because y'all, the girls, they don't care how pretty you look and how nice you sing. It's how nice is your house, right? So they're coming up here, they got to get the best house because they got to get a girlfriend, right? So the males are zipping up here. And y'all all know we've had snow in March, right? That happens pretty often. So these birds are migrating, they're pushing the envelope. I gotta be the first guy on the prettiest property to get the girlfriend. And we get a big cold snap. And the hummingbird's like, well, my metabolism is so high, there's really not a lot of flowers out yet. I am gonna die if I have to sit through this cold night. They will go into something called torpor, which is basically, simplifying it, it's hibernation for one night. No other animal can do this. And it's, one thing for a cold-blooded animal to get very cold for one night. It's another thing for a warm-blooded animal to shut down all these processes that we have to stay warm-blooded. But these guys will go into torpor for one night just to conserve the calories so they can survive it. And so, yeah, these are birds that are in torpor. If you go on YouTube and look at it, they actually snore. It's adorable. Oh my gosh. I should just figure out a way to put a video in there. And in all birds, this is relaxed and this is tense. Otherwise, all the birds would fall out of the trees when they fall asleep, right? So, yeah, this poor guy, he's actually on the feeder and he's like, went over. But I actually had a friend call, and she's like, I found this hummingbird, and it's not dead, but it's like unconscious or something. It was first thing in the morning. I'm like, oh, you found a hummingbird in torpor. Go put it in a sunny spot. And 20 minutes later, popped up and flew away. Pretty amazing, I know. Pretty amazing. They are amazing animals. All right, so getting closer to home. What do we have right now? We have ruby-throated hummingbirds. Only the males have the ruby throat. The females have white throats, and the youngsters have white throats. This is called the gorget. The ruby throat, the gorget, it's iridescent. And iridescence means when you shine light on it, you either get double the light back or you get negative light back. So that'll either look sparkly or it'll look black. It's literally canceling out light waves. So, right, that's where you get the, oh no, I have the ruby-throated ones, I have the white-throated ones, I have the black-throated ones, I have the little ones and the big ones. Those are all ruby-throated hummingbirds. They can, clench their feathers in very close and make them look very small. They can poof their feathers out and make them look big. We don't have different sizes of hummingbirds. Females are a little bit larger than males, but really not, that's really tough to pick out in the field, the difference between 3 grams and 4 grams. So these guys are only here to nest, raise babies, and then haul it back to the tropics. Here is our range map. It's weird that the summer's in blue, normally winter's in blue, but anyway, yeah, winter range. Look at that, range. They go over the north of the Rockies and then across Canada, right? That's an amazing migration for these little bitty birds. Here's winter. Notice there is no connection between those two. How are they getting from here to the coast? They're flying across the Gulf of Mexico. Right? A bird that weighs 3 grams, the same as a penny, launches from here and flies 22 hours straight, and they can't soar like a vulture. They have to flippity-flap every flippity-flap between there and there. So how do they do it? They launch fat and they land skinny. They have special fat that burns off really quickly. The other way around too, when they're leaving in the fall, we'll talk about banding hummingbirds, and the banders will tell you they feel squishy like a stress ball. They're so fat. This is a great map. All right, so here's our arrival dates. With the question at the top that I promised some people I would answer, where are my hummingbirds? Rose. Okay, so because they got here, they hit the coast around March 1st, and you can see how they march up the state. They hit, Coweta, around March 20th, March 25th. And so if you put your hummingbird feeder out at the end of March, what you're probably going to get is a male, and he's going to be fueling up because this is only a little piece of the population. They're going to spread all the way up to Canada. But we've got, it's concentrated because everybody's flying across the Gulf and spreading from there, right? So if you put out a feeder at the end of March, most of those hummingbirds are going to stop off and then keep going, right? Make sense? Okay, but eventually everybody finds their territory and settles down, pairs off. I still don't have hummingbirds in my yard, Rose. Where are my hummingbirds, right? Okay, nope, we're gonna talk about that here. I forgot the order of my slides. Okay, so where are my hummingbirds between March and say 4th of July, right? We're not there yet. I haven't seen any hummingbirds on my feeder yet, to be honest. They are nesting. They are breeding, and you can't raise babies on sugar water, right? So while they are nesting, they are territorial. Anybody that owns a feeder can tell you that our ruby-throated hummingbirds are extremely territorial. So while they're nesting, they stay in their territory where their nest is, but they're also way more insectivorous. They are eating a lot of insects because those babies need protein. And one of their favorite insects is spiders. I know when I used to hummingbird sit, you'd go find a spider and feed it to them. It was fun. That's one of their favorite insects. So that is why you are not having a lot of traffic at your feeder. They are here, but they're not coming to feeders until those babies have grown up and left the nest, which is right around 4th of July. Here in Georgia, most of the time our hummingbirds will raise 2 broods. Sometimes just 1 brood, and then up in New England and Canada, they only do 1 round a season. So then around 4th of July, those first sets are leaving the nest. Now we have extra hummingbirds, and they have to get fat, which is what sugar water is really good for, right? They have to get fat so they can migrate back across the Gulf. So if you're lazy and like me, you hate cleaning your hummingbird feeder, especially if you're not getting any traffic, why bother? Put it out the 4th of July. That's when our traffic starts. So the timing of this meeting is perfect, right? All right. And then they will be leaving early to mid-October. Anything after November 1st is considered rare. All right, so we touched on how territorial our hummingbirds are. And you know what? Even as hummingbirds go, ruby throats are really amongst the most territorial. Like, have you ever seen pictures of, 20 hummingbirds all, like you go to Costa Rica, there's 20 hummingbirds all at the feeder, or even your friend in Arizona is like, look, I have 4 hummingbirds on my feeder at the same time. And you're like, why don't I get this? It's because we have ruby throats, and they are brats, and that is just how it is. It's a drag, but it is how it is with ruby throats. I get asked a lot, can I put up 2 feeders? And of course, the key thing is it has to be out of the line of sight. Otherwise, your hummingbird just sits in the middle and kicks everybody off 2 feeders, right? So you can have one in the backyard and one in the front yard, but they can't be within the line of sight of each other, or just he's going to sit there and guard both. You can overwhelm hummingbirds. If you live in the country, if you put out 10 hummingbird feeders, and then that hummingbird, he just can't defend 10 hummingbird feeders, and they will eventually give up. But if you're in the suburbs like I am, we don't have the habitat to support 10 hummingbirds. And so you can't do that in the suburbs, but if you're out in the country, you can put out a whole bunch of feeders, and then you can get the dozens of hummingbirds. It can happen. And I thought this was, when I read this, I thought, oh, isn't that a classic? Even paired male and female, they don't even share a territory. They're so territorial. It's like they're adjacent. I'm over here, you're over there, right? Dude, right? I love that. That's just so hummingbird to me. And then they also do trap lining. I'm from Louisiana. We call it trot lining. Yeah, any fishermen in here? Yeah, okay, what's trot lining?
Yep, line them up with the barrels so you can see where they are. They're usually the jugs.
Right, so trot lining is you drop a hook here, and then you drop a hook here, and then you drop a hook there, and by the time you've dropped all your hooks, it's time to go all the way back to the beginning and check for fish, right? So hummingbirds do the same thing. They sip the nectar here, sip the nectar there. And of course, all this changes throughout the season. As gardeners, y'all know, from month to month, different flowers are blooming, so their territory will kind of move around and change. And by the time they get to that last flower, that flower is recharged again with nectar, and we can go back to the beginning. Except you put out this magical flower that never runs out of nectar. But in the wild, that's how they work. All right, so breeding, that's what they are in Georgia to do. They come here because there's more food available, there's less competition, there's a whole lot of hummingbirds in Colombia this time of year, and we have a lot fewer predators here than in the tropics. So that's why it is advantageous for them to leave the tropics and make that dangerous journey up to Georgia. Once they get here, the male finds his territory, girlfriend, gives it the thumbs up. He makes his happy little contribution, whee! And that's it for the male. I'm done. The female, she builds the nest, she incubates the eggs, she feeds the young, protects the young. The male's done. In the fall, when everybody's trying to head back to the tropics, the males all go first, because what do they have to stay for? They're not raising babies, right? So yes, the males they are deadbeat dads, unfortunately. They are built with soft grasses and spider webs. So a hummingbird nest, there are no sticks involved. If you find one, it's squishy. And they are about the size of a walnut. I have only found one hummingbird nest in Georgia in all the years that I've been birding. And it was at Old Rope Mill in Cherokee County. And I saw the hummingbird doing this motion, and I put the binocs on her, and she was collecting spider webs, right? So I kept my binocs on her, and sure enough, she flew up and landed on this little walnut-sized knot on the tree branch. That's the only time I've ever found a hummingbird nest. So it's built with soft fluff, like you would get out of a cattail or a willow tree, fluffy stuff. It's spider webs and lichen. This one doesn't have, you can't really see any lichen on that one, but this one, there you go. So the female hummingbird goes and finds lichen growing on tree bark and peels it off and sticks it onto the nest with the spider webs. I know. And that gives us camouflage. Well, if she wasn't on a swing chain, it'd be camouflage. Imagine that on a branch. And it also waterproofs it. Pretty cool. And I said, they use fluff. Yeah, can you see this guy used house insulation, like Pink Panther, home insulation for their fluff. But there's our 2 babies. They typically do lay 2 eggs, about the size of navy beans, very tiny. All right, so gardening for hummers. Obviously we need plants, flowers that are going to produce nectar, but they are here to nest, right? So what's going to make an excellent territory for nesting hummingbirds is a landscape that is rich in insects. How do we keep insects in our yard is by planting native plants. Just like hummers evolve with flowers, our insects evolve to eat specific plants. We all know, all right, what specific plant do monarch butterflies need? Milkweed. If you want monarchs, you have to have milkweed because that insect evolved with that plant. It didn't evolve with your Japanese maples or your Chinese privet or your English ivy. So to have a rich insect yard, you need native plants. So that's why one of your handouts is from the Georgia Native Plant Society. That is just straight off their webpage. They maintain a really good list of all the nurseries that sell native plants, and y'all have nearly native down here, right? Okay, give them a shot. And then of course, hiring Mr. Mosquito to spray your yard is also destroying your insect population. If you've ever been up to Gibbs Gardens in Ball Ground, not to throw Gibbs Gardens under the bus, but a friend of mine, a birder, it's like, I got a membership, let's go bird. And there are no birds in Gibbs Gardens. It's beautiful, but there's no birds because everything's Asian, and everything is sprayed with insecticide because they're a landscape company. They need their plants to look perfect. So everything's sprayed with insecticide and everything's non-native. And there's a mockingbird in the parking lot. That's about it. So yeah, native plants. We need not only flowers, but they nest in typically 10 to 20 foot in a tree. They like small trees like dogwoods. I think mine was in a maple. So layers, and that also helps your insect population to have your big variety, passion vine for your Gulf fritillaries and sweet gums for your Luna moths and all that good stuff. The Bible for that is Bringing Nature Home by Doug Tallamy. He really knows his bugs and what plants they like. But the Georgia Native Plant Society is they have a great website. It's a great place to start. Okay, so here are some of the flowering plants that you would want to plant. If you want to attract hummingbirds, you want to stick with native. I think zinnias are not native. I got a couple of non-natives in the list, but these are all still attractive to hummingbirds as far as nectar. So yeah, y'all can read some of these. Yeah, cardinal flower, salvia, jewelweed, penstemon, all great hummingbird attractors. Also, we have vines that are really attractive to hummingbirds. That's coral honeysuckle, which is a beautiful vine. I don't know why the nurseries don't carry them. They bloom all summer long. This is trumpet vine. This shows up in our yards, on its own a lot. And this is buckeye. All right, so what are we noticing? Red, right? Red. Hummingbirds have evolved to be attracted to the color red. What else? Oop, wrong way. Tube shaped, they're trumpet shaped, tube shaped, right? Because their beaks have evolved to get up those long tubes and be the only person to be able to get up that long tube. All right, and the last thing I want y'all to notice is, except for that zinnia, come on, everything points down. Right? So a butterfly can't hang upside down, right? They have to sit on their flower to pollinate it. We talked about how hummingbirds have evolved to hover. There's nowhere to perch under these flowers. There's no branches under the flowers. The flowers hang out and hang down. And that means the only animal that can pollinate this thing has to be able to hover and has to be able to drink with the beak or the proboscis or whatever pointed up. So we're talking hummingbirds. So trumpet vine evolved to be pollinated by hummingbirds, just like buckeye did. So those are literally evolved to be pollinated by hummingbirds. All right, feeders. All right, so so I also work very, very part-time at Birdwatcher Supply, which sells, it's like Wild Birds Unlimited. We sell bird seed and bird feeders, but the owner of Birdwatcher Supply is a hummingbird bander. There's only 4 in the state, and 2 of them are the owners of Birdwatcher Supply. So you better believe we sell some hummingbird merch, right? We have about, I'm not kidding, like 20 different kinds of hummingbird feeders. But, so I brought all mine. All right, so there are like 20 different kinds, no kidding. But they break down into 2 styles. We got bottle style, we got your bottle style, and we have your saucer style. I've listed all the advantages up there. This is literally, like I pulled this off my deck and rinsed it off to bring it in, you guys. I wouldn't use this, because let's be serious here. We're putting sugar water outside in Georgia in the summertime. It is gonna mildew, right? And I don't have time to get a little bottle brush. Like I can't put this in my dishwasher. I have to get a little bottle brush. And this one has a big neck because I bought it. I'm not gonna buy one with a, but we'll sell you one with a 1/2-inch little neck on it, and you have to get the bottle brush in there. All right, ain't got time for that, right? So I don't recommend the bottle style, but they've been around longer and they're prettier, and they come in a lot of different styles. And most of the saucer styles are plastic and kind of pricey. This one's like 30 bucks. I know, right? But you just pop the top off, and I put it in my dishwasher. It might give you the heebie-jeebies, because there's going to be ants in there or whatever. But you know what? I got over that. Like put it in the dishwasher. But even if you don't, this is way, way, way easier to clean, right? Also, this cannot drip because it's sitting in a saucer. This one will drip because this is held in by surface tension. The nectar is right there, and it'll drip, especially when it's cool in the morning, hot in the afternoon. And also because the nectar's right there, bees can drink it. I only fill this halfway up. Their little bee tongues can't reach where the nectar is, so the bees can't get into this one. So I do very much recommend the saucer style. Let's see, where did I put my clicker down? Boink. Oh, also, one other thing, when you hang your bottle out on your deck or whatever, your backyard, most of the time they're coming from, behind the feeder, and they're gonna land on the back side of the feeder and you don't see the bird. This one you always can see the bird. All right. All right. Okay, so I also recommend getting a moat. A question I get a lot is, how do I keep ants out of my feeder? Well, how are they going to get into your feeder in the first place, right? They're going to come down your shepherd's hook, right, and get into the feeder that way. So we just hang, this is my moat, it's a little dirty, but you fill this with water. Our ants come down the shepherd's hook, down our little chain or whatever, and they can't swim across our little puddle to get around and down to your hummingbird feeder. And then I had to put a picture up of a chickadee. Other birds, our seed-eating birds love to drink out of these little things. And you know, of course, the hummingbird's all territorial. And he's all, oh, you know, that's my feeder. He gets all upset. I think it's hilarious. So yeah, other birds will even like bathe in these things. It's really cute. $5.99, worth every penny. And then our nectar recipe. It's on the handout that y'all printed up. It is 4 parts water to 1 part sugar. Some old school will cheat a little bit, put a little extra sugar in there. So your feeder's a little sweeter than the flour over there. But remember, hummingbirds have evolved to have that ratio. 4 parts water, 1 part sugar. So don't mess with nature. It's never smart. And the handout said you should boil your water. That is old school. They have done a scientific study and shown that boiling it does not make any difference as far as mildewing. You do need to have your water hot enough to dissolve the sugar. But as for me, it comes out of my tap hot enough. If it doesn't come out of your tap hot enough, yeah, you'll have to put it on the stove. But for me, it comes out of my tap hot enough to dissolve the sugar. You can make big batches and save it in your fridge. Think of it like Coca-Cola, right? You could take a Coca-Cola and it'll sit in your fridge basically forever. But if you put it out on your deck in July, would you want to drink it on day 3? No, right? So think of your nectar kind of that way. So in July in Georgia, you need to change your nectar at least twice a week. Like every 3-4 days. If it turns cloudy, that means it is getting mildewy, nasty, change it right away. In the spring, in the fall, it's basically in a refrigerator overnight. You can go longer, you can stretch that out. In the winter, you can really stretch it out if you leave your feeder out in the winter. But height of hummingbird traffic, twice a day. So, and I only fill this halfway, because as we all know, we have very territorial hummingbirds. There's no way they're going to drink 16 ounces. This holds 16 ounces. They're never going to drink 16 ounces of nectar in 3 days. More portals is not better, because we all know you're only going to get 1 at a time. You're not going to have 3 hummingbirds, so having 3 portals is a waste. And paying more, we will sell you another one with 4 portals for more money. Don't do it, right? I know, and the 5 portal one is even more expensive, right? Okay, bigger is not better. So yeah, this guy holds a half a cup of nectar. This is the jewel. That's what I use. So when you're making your nectar, you are going to make your nectar with pure, plain old table sugar, refined white table sugar. Okay, we're not using sugar in the raw that has those minerals that are good for you, are bad for hummingbirds. That will actually injure your hummingbirds, the sugar in the raw. Do not use honey. For goodness sake, not artificial sweeteners, right? We need fat hummingbirds is what we're working toward here. And right, just hot enough water to dissolve the sugar. I don't make extra because it's just, I don't know, half a cup of hot water, 2 tablespoons sugar, stir, pour. But you do you. All right, all right, we're on winter hummingbirds. How am I doing on time? Okay. All right, this is the last topic. So winter hummingbirds. So I noticed this sheet that you guys handed out is like, yeah, ruby-throated hummingbirds, but also, if y'all haven't looked at this, black-chin, rufous, calliope, magnificent, Allen's, Anna's, broad-billed, green-violet ear. Okay, this is a list of hummingbirds that have showed up in the state of Georgia at least once in forever. So, yeah, looking out your backyard and thinking, I want a green-breasted mango. Okay, this is a really optimistic list. This is a list of the hummingbirds that have showed up in Georgia. In fact, the magnificent, number 5, I can only find 1 record. We had a magnificent here in Winder in 1993. Okay, so great list, but yeah, this is not an expected list. But we do have, these are all hummingbirds that show up in Georgia in the winter. Did you know we had hummingbirds here in the winter? I know, it's rare, it's rare. Like I said, anything after November 1st is considered a rare winter hummingbird. If you're in your backyard and a hummingbird comes to your camellia in the winter, go put up your feeder and report it, because that is a rare find. The most common winter hummingbird in Georgia is the rufous, and it's this beautiful copper color. You're not going to think, oh, look, another regular old ruby-throated hummingbird, right? It's this beautiful copper-colored hummingbird. And most common is the rufous. Let's see what my notes were, but I did look it up for Coweta County. Oh, no, I didn't look up this, did I? Rufus, y'all, okay, y'all had one in Sharpsburg in 2014, so 10 years ago. So y'all need to put up your feeders and report them, because they're around here. Y'all aren't just start putting up feeders and looking for them. Y'all have had more rufuses than that. Oh, but how do they do it, right? They need nectar, they need insects. And we don't have a lot of nectar or insects in February. We get ice storms in February, right? So one of the theories as to how they are accomplishing this is, all right, any bird watchers? Woodpecker. It is a woodpecker, good. Oh, the room goes silent. Sapsucker, full winter chicken dinner. This is a sapsucker. These are winter only in Coweta County. And these are the stinkers that make the what looks like bullet holes in the barks of your trees, right? And they go in those lines. Okay, so that's the bird that does that, only one bird. It's a sapsucker. Obviously, he's not looking to live in these little bitty holes, right? These are sap wells. So he does a million holes, and a teeny tiny bit of sap is gonna pool in the bottom of each one of those holes. And the little stinker hummingbirds follow the sapsuckers and steal their sap, right? So they think that's one of the ways. We do have a few winter flowers, but that's one of the ways that they are thinking these hummingbirds are surviving the winter. It's not the cold. This tiny 3-gram bird can survive really cold temperatures. It's the lack of food. That is an actual rufous hummingbird, I know, on a feeder in Alpharetta, Georgia, in the snow. Right? I know a friend of mine posted that on Facebook, and I'm like, please can I have your picture, please? It's such a great picture. But he actually had 2 feeders, and he kept one in the house, and he just swapped them back and forth so it wouldn't freeze solid. Amazing, I know. That 3-gram bird, like I couldn't live outside in the snow for 2 hours. It's crazy. And then these are just some winter hummingbirds that have shown up in Georgia recently, just to give you a taste. This is a calliope that showed up in Cobb County in 2016. So y'all getting the idea of how rare some of these birds are. Rufuses show up every year, here and there, a smattering. That's the actual calliope. I threw in a picture of a male just so y'all see what the male looks like. Beautiful birds. That's the smallest North American hummer. That's an Allen's that showed up in Karen Theodoro's yard. She lives in Buford, and it's a young male. Notice he's got the white throat, but he's got like 10 gorget feathers. So he's like, you know, your teenage boy that's getting the peach fuzz, and they're all proud, right? He's like, look at my 10 orange feathers. I'm a man, right? So I know what you're thinking, right? How did they get that hummingbird in their hand? How did that happen, right? That's Karen's fingers, I think. So yeah, how do you catch a hummingbird? All right, so you find your hummingbird in your yard, and it's February. You put up your feeder, come into your feeder, you report it. Crazy bird watchers like me drive all the way down here really quick and look over your fence to try and see the bird with permission. Some people leave out coffee for us, just saying. Donuts. And a little journal. So yeah, so then what happens is probably Julia, the owner of Birdwatcher Supply, will come trucking down here, and she will put a cage around your feeder, because the hummingbirds used to coming to your feeder. So they put a cage looking about like that around your feeder, and there's different ones. They have little remotes, or they have a little string, or they have some way of shutting the cage. Hummingbird flies in, you shut the cage, and then you can just catch it by pinning it up against the wall of the cage. And then they will band your hummingbird, because we're trying to learn, why are these winter hummingbirds showing up? These are Western birds. They belong in California and in Oregon. And so instead of heading to Mexico like all the other Western hummingbirds, they're like Bugs Bunny, and they take the left turn at Albuquerque, right? And they wind up in the Gulf states. Don't know why. So they will band your hummingbird. We're trying to figure this out. And that is an actual hummingbird leg band on an actual penny. That is how tiny these things are. I know. So when you are a licensed bird bander in the state of Georgia, there are 2 licenses. You can band birds, and that's all of them, or you can band hummingbirds, and that is a separate license. And you can only become a bander by being mentored by the current 4 banders, because it's such a different technique, right? This isn't putting a mist net up and grabbing them out of nets, and it's a very different technique. Wink. So yeah, this is Julia. She's not Julia Elliott anymore. She just got remarried. But anyway, that's Julia, the hummingbird whisperer, the owner of Birdwatcher Supply Company. Y'all don't have one on the south side of town, so y'all may shop at Wild Birds Unlimited. I won't judge. Okay, but she owns Birdwatcher Supply based out of Kennesaw, and we're lucky in the state of Georgia. We do have a public hummingbird banding event at the end of every summer. They do it at Smith Gilbert Gardens up in Kennesaw. Anybody ever been? Oh yeah, okay, see you gardeners, y'all get around. It's a little jewel in the middle of where you would not expect a garden to be. It's usually the weekend after Labor Day. Let's see, what else do I have? No, that's it. And just pro tip, show up early. And they will catch like 17, 19, 20 hummingbirds. I know, it's a lot. They have a lot of feeders up at Smith Gilbert, but show up early. Show up when they open the gates. They generally don't catch any hummingbirds after about 10 in the morning. So show up early, bring your grandkids, or because they pick the cutest kid out of the audience, and they get to release the hummingbird. Because like any bird that is captured, any bird, their instinct is to be very still, right? Because if they struggle, that makes the predator want to eat them. So they go very still. And so when they're done banding the bird, they will take somebody from the audience and put the hummingbird on their hand, and it'll just sit there. And sometimes you have to blow on and they'll fly away. And people cry, and it's really, I know, I have a video of Lisa Bartlett weeping when the hummingbird flies. Anyway, yeah, bring your cutest kids or whatever, and they'll get picked. Okay, in all the years we've been doing this, it's been going on for about 12 years now, we've never recaptured a bird. Which is strange, I know, because hummingbirds do come back to the same spot. Not exactly the same spot, because that's where